All right, I'd like to call this Public Utilities Transportation Committee meeting to call it to order. I guess first thing I'd like to do is just open with the prayer, if you don't mind. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to come together today. Lord, I want to start off by praising our country and this great country of ours. And please watch over and I pray for all those heroes we have, both men and women, across the country and here with us, Lord. All of our first responders. I also want to pray for our city employees, our city staff that do such a fine job. I pray for our community, and I pray for these leaders in here as we discuss how we can make our city better. In your name we pray. Amen. Thank you. So my name is Bill Duvall. This is the Public Utilities Transportation Committee meeting. I'd like to call for the adoption of the agenda. I have a motion. Second. Aye. So approved. Okay. So anyway, let's see. We do have some people online, and we're going to start off. The topic, the discussion today is potential traffic signal or traffic improvement in 78th there in public shopping center. And I know online we do. I can't see who we have online. Okay, we on our Zoom meeting we do have representatives from Georgia DOT. Thank you all for being with us. Also joining us today we have Kecken Wood, who represents the city as far as engineering work. And I just want to start off with I'd like to, one thing that comes up when you start looking at an intersection is everybody wants to know, can we get a traffic signal? Where do we need them? But I guess I want to start off with just a quick discussion on how do you get a traffic signal and when do you use it? I mean, there's certain things called warrants, and I was wondering, Rob's standing at the podium. Can you kind of explain that and talk to us? What are the ins and outs?
Yeah, sure. I'll do my best. So Rob Jaquette, Kecken Wood. Hey, everybody online. Thanks for jumping on.
Chairman, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
For the public, why they're on Zoom and we're not letting anyone do Zoom, that GDOT could only meet by Zoom. They couldn't be in the public meeting. So that's why they were allowed to do Zoom. They're still doing that with the state. So just want to make sure the public knows that's why this is a public meeting for indoor, but GDOT was only able to attend by Zoom. Sorry, Rob.
No problem.
Thank you.
So traffic signals, like you were saying, I mean, traffic signals are kind of one of the most visible control measures we see out there. We drive through, we see traffic signals, we stop at them, hopefully. But what goes into deciding whether an intersection warrant, as you said, warrants a traffic signal? The Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices has a set of traffic signal warrants. Some of them are volume based, some of them are crash based, some of them are pedestrian based. There's different things that can go into what we look at for a signal for a signal to be the appropriate treatment. The most common is typically a volume warrant. One of the things that we have to do is we have to count or get existing traffic volumes for that intersection. Usually we get a period of 12 hours during a typical day. The reason is the typical warrant that's used is an 8-hour warrant. So it's not just about 1 hour of the day that has enough traffic volume. It has to do it for 8 hours of the day to warrant a traffic signal. There are different thresholds of that 8-hour warrant. Typically the DOT looks at the 100% threshold for traffic signals. One of the newer things starting in 2017, you guys have heard of ICE, I think, intersection control evaluation. So the DOT wants to document and look at intersection by intersection as they're looking to improve it. Okay, it could be a traffic signal. It might warrant, it might not. But what else could it be? Could it be a roundabout? Could it be a signalized restricted crossing U-turn and R-cut? There's different options for intersection control that doesn't necessarily have to be a signal. And the DOT documents here's the reasons we chose this thing, whatever it is, as a solution for the intersection control. So I don't know if that
Sure.
helps.
So what are some other, all right, if you, we're talking about a corridor on US 78, bisects Loganville. You have signals in this particular area. I know you're going to get to while we're talking about this particular site, but you know, to the east of it, you have the signal at State Route 20. To the west of it, you have another signal at the Home Depot. So, now granted, the study that you'll do will determine whether or not a signal is even warranted or needed, or if there's some other operational improvement. We'll get to that point, but you don't. I mean, let's just say if you had a signal that's a mile away, how does that influence the signal right here? Does it have any influence on it?
It influenced the warrant of it,
Or influence the operation, really?
so definitely the operation. If a signal's installed, whether it's 1,000, 1,200 feet away or a mile away, that signal, both signals are going to influence each other by controlling the platoon of cars that goes each way. So there is influence there. There's some signal timing operational adjustments that should be done at both signals so they interact well together. For just depending on signal spacing.
Sure. And in fact, the signals along 78 are managed. They're managed by the GDOT TMC,
correct,
as I understand. Just out of curiosity, how close can you put a signal to one another? I mean, is there in downtown Atlanta, you have them from block to block, but that's a different scenario. You're trying to move 40,000 vehicles per day through the city here. How close can you get a signal where it's not really useful?
Correct. The typical standard, which was updated within the last couple of years, I think is 1,250 feet, is the desired spacing. Like you said, there are situations where closer distances than that have happened and probably will happen, but it's on a case-by-case basis. But the typical standard is that 1,250 feet between signals.
Good. Well, I appreciate that. Ann or Ray, do y'all have any questions as far as signals go? Thank you.
Okay.
Well, Rob, if you will proceed on and let's talk about this project that we're looking at.
Sure. Can you put up the first one? Just the fourth page, that concept, if you don't mind. No, the draft concept. That one. Just the back page of it. So just for the GDOT staff involved, just for a little bit of history, the city kind of knows this history a little bit, but just want to bring you guys up to speed. In 2014, Keckenwood was engaged to take a look at this intersection, really prompted by the owner of this Publix development, as something that they saw a need for access or improved access for the owners and the people who were utilizing the shopping center. So we did at that time in 2014 a TE study looking at the current four side street stop controlled full access intersections that service this shopping center. The concept that you guys are looking at is what we came up with at the time, essentially converting 3 of those full access driveways to right in, right out configuration, and that the fourth access, what we call the main access that lines up with the road on the other side of 78, as a signalized access. We went through the TE study. We submitted that TE study to GDOT, and at the time, the district denied the TE study because there was a project just to the east that was a one-way pair project through downtown, and that project was going to install a signal at the intersection of 78 and CS Floyd, which, as Bill said earlier, would have been too close to this signal for installation. So it was denied because of signal spacing. So after that, in the last couple of years, that project has been changed and is no longer a one-way pair, is no longer going to install a signal there. Some public involvement and different things were done, and the concept of that project has kind of changed. So that is off the table, in the one-way pair and installing a signal at CS Floyd. So after that, once that information changed, the owner of the public shopping center re-engaged the city to say, hey, now that that's not there, can we take a look at this again? So Keckenwood took a look at the concepts. We updated our costs, and what you're seeing here is the concept at the back of a 3-page memo we wrote to the city, just kind of detailing some of the things we saw. As part of looking into this, we noticed that GDOT commissioned a road safety audit along US 78, which was completed by Atkins in 2020. for more than this section of 78, but including this section of 78. So looking through that road safety audit, which I'll pull up a couple pages of it here, there were some recommendations for safety improvements throughout this corridor. This section 4.7, it happens to be the section that this Publix intersection is included in. If as you scroll through, there's some converting intersections to right in, right out, improving ADA ramps, some drainage stuff, but really the main recommendation through this section was to install a median, which effectively converts all the driveways to right in, right out, except for ones that would have some sort of full access. So understanding that, we thought, and we talked to the city and thought it might be a good idea to talk to GDOT and see if this was an opportunity for the city and the owner of the public shopping center and GDOT to partner together and kind of create a project that addresses public's needs, addresses some of the city's plans for the future, and also helps address part of what some of the recommendations out of the road safety audit were. So I'll stop there just for kind of the history piece and see if anybody here or anybody online has questions about that. Good.
I just want to confirm with you that I understood what you said, that this was kind of on the docket before, but the last project, which was the one-way pair at CS Floyd, which was to make everything one-way kind of up in these corridors.
Correct.
That would have made the light at CS Floyd too close in the 1250 feet designated, which is why this did not continue.
Correct.
So we couldn't do anything, and I'm really responding to citizens who want to know why we haven't done anything.
Sure.
There was no way we could do it at that point until that
The
project did
solution
something.
was not going to be a traffic signal
Got it.
for this intersection.
Got it.
So
That's what I wanted to clarify.
Not
Thank
saying
you.
there couldn't anything be done, but the desire was a traffic signal, and we weren't able to
Right.
do a traffic signal.
But until GDOT killed that project, we couldn't do anything really with this.
For a signal, yes.
For a signal.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anything else? Anybody online?
Rob, just to say the median we're talking about is only from Logan Drive to CS Lloyd. not
Yeah, and that's,
the entire
I've got the
78 corridor.
concept we drew. I was going to get to that. Okay, so since then we talked with the city. We kind of started going down this road, and we drew up. Put that one up. We drew up a concept, extremely high level concept of what like just to be able to show the city and some stakeholders. And I can send all of you these files too, so you can, so you'll be able to see them. I apologize, I didn't do that beforehand. But the median would start. This is the signalized intersection to the west at Logan Drive of the Publix intersection that we're talking about. Some of that striping we have shown. All of that is existing. There would be no operational change proposed at Logan Drive. So depending on the condition of the striping and stuff, we might not need to actually do some of that. There could be some cost savings and things like that. But then scroll. Actually, I have the clicker. Maybe back one. Oh, maybe I did it. Yeah. Okay. So then this is the middle sheet. This is showing the potential signal at the Publix and the conversion of those 4 full access the other 3 full access driveways to right in, right out. And then let me go to the third sheet. And then the next one is farther to the east. The signal down there all the way at the end is that Sterile 20 Main Street signal. The road safety audit already did an ICE for the CS Floyd intersection, which is that 3/4 access you're seeing on the left side of the sheet. That ICE was done as part of the road safety audit, and that was the recommendation there. So that's the only one along that stretch that wouldn't be a right in, right out. And then the Publix, obviously, we would look at the appropriate operational treatment there. So we put together this concept sketch just kind of to have something to show the city and the stakeholders.
Go ahead.
On the first page of your drawing, your proposal, I just want to make sure, since the whole area to the right of the hotel has now been cleared, that in and out, that right in, right out that's there matches the driveway that they cut.
Sorry, the second sheet?
First sheet, next where,
Oh, yeah. No, this is just from a sketch from an aerial that will,
Okay.
that
So
will be
that,
maintained.
but all that matched, okay.
Yes, all that match, yep, all that'll be maintained. So obviously, if we were to proceed in this process, this concept would have a lot of revisions and a lot of things that GDOT will want to see. So this is extremely high level. So after that, oh, go ahead, Mayor.
Are you aware of some of the projects that Chick-fil-A is thinking about doing?
You have to use the microphone, sir.
Oh. Hey, Rob, are you aware of some of the projects that Chick-fil-A is thinking about doing about expanding their restaurant? Yeah.
I am not.
You're not.
Danny, I don't know if you.
Mayor, they already have a right-in, right-out, so this
So it's not
should
gonna-
not affect them because
Okay.
I believe their drive is still would remain the same as far as their access.
Yeah,
Because
they're-
Publix would go to that intersection or that road next to Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
And Chick-fil-A is one that did the right-in, right-out themselves.
Okay.
Yeah, and there would be some improvement if you look at the second sheet. Go forward. If you can see at the bottom, there's some improvement in the internal Publix driveway, improving that drive aisle to access the full access driveway for people at Chick-fil-A who wanted to go back to the east or things like that. So we're making some improvements to accommodate more, people that using all those different restaurants and things like that.
But that wouldn't be part of this project. That's just an improvement that the Publix owner would make?
I don't know that it's been talked about or decided what will be part of what, or I think there's more research to do to kind of figure that out. But just from an access standpoint, I think that improvement would be beneficial to the project. Okay, so after we drew this, we talked to the city, we've talked to the owner of the public shopping center. And so we engaged Sam Harris with GDOT just to kind of high level talk about the project. Sam helped us understand the process that this might go through to obtain partnership from GDOT. So there's several steps that we would need to take in order to go down that road. So the first step is a relatively new process for GDOT. It's called a crash screening. It's a document that really looks at whatever the project is, if it's an intersection, if it's a corridor of multiple intersections, whatever it is, but helps us understand what the crash history in the area is, how severe are they. Some of the geometry is looked at, and then some potential alternatives for improvements are looked at, and we look at what's called a benefit to cost ratio for those improvements.
So how is that different than the crash history that you typically do with in a concept report?
The data is the same. The way it's presented and the way it's processed is a little different. The safety program that Sam manages has created some new ways to kind of process the data and display the data to make it more, easier to understand, easier to look at multiple projects and compare them to see which one might be a more impactful project from a benefit standpoint. So data is the same, just kind of the way it looks is a little different. So that would be our first process, consolidate all the data, pull together the crash screening report, and come up with some higher level benefit to cost ratios for potential improvements along the corridor. The right in, right out intersections, that was proposed in the RSA. I think the biggest alternative options we would need to look at is at this main Publix intersection. We're going to have to come up with a couple different alternatives and figure out how much they cost versus how much benefit they have. And in the safety, in the crash screening, it's more benefit from a safety standpoint, not really from an operations standpoint. So once we get to that point, we would submit that to GDOT. GDOT would review it. Then if comments, changes, things that we need to do, after that point, we would need to go through the intersection control evaluation, the ICE analysis, for each intersection along this section of the corridor. For the right-in, right-outs, if we're installing a median and converting those driveways to right-in, right-outs, there's kind of a blanket right-in, right-out waiver that can kind of take care of, I think there's 6 of them, without more high-level analysis. Go ahead, Mayor.
Hey, Rob, on the when you're talking on the public shopping center side, I think there's 2 or 3 entrances on that shopping center, and one is the Journey's Inn, right next to Chick-fil-A. would this project eliminate that? So all the traffic from, say, Journey's End, as far as the rental place, it'll go down the public side?
So they'll be able to enter from the west and exit to the east still, but the other traffic will need to use the traffic signal to head the other way.
Okay.
And also traffic turning left in, coming from the east, will now need to use the signal and be routed through.
So that road where Journey's is at, that's going to be right in?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So we would go through the intersection control process, evaluate different alternatives, and this takes a deeper look at those intersections. It's not just safety, it looks at operations, it looks at some more in-depth cost, construction costs, right-of-way costs. Hopefully that's not going to be an issue here. I'll talk about that in a minute. Utility impacts, all those kinds of things. So it's just a deeper look into what these alternatives could be. Once we complete the ICE analysis for the intersections that it's needed in the corridor, we'd submit that back to GDOT as well. We'd have some discussion back and forth about that process. And once the ICE reports were approved for the intersections, we need to move to the TE report phase. TE report is more, really more documentation. There's a few more things we need to do. We would need to do an environmental screening for the area to identify any potential resources that could impact the project. That's probably the point where we would end up revising this concept and getting a little more detailed in some of the things that GDOT's going to want to see in that TE report phase. And then at the end of that TE report phase, once again, we'd submit to GDOT. Now, there is a step past the TE report. From talking with Sam, our understanding is that the difference of needing to go to the concept report phase, which is that next phase, is if the project involves right-of-way or does not involve right-of-way. If it involves right-of-way, we need to go the next step. If it does not involve right-of-way, we're able to kind of stop at the TE study phase. Now, Sam, if I misspeak, please correct me. So the concept report is sort of your typical GDOT level concept report, Bill. I know you have a ton of experience with those. It's just a deeper level of research and understanding about the project and approval before it gets programmed.
Hey, Sam might be muted. I don't know if he tried to say anything.
I don't know if he did.
Because I think everybody's muted up there. Did you?
There he goes.
Now hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. No, I mean, you're doing a good job. I was just saying, yeah, that if we don't have right away.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Intermission.
That was weird.
Don't have to examine it.
Is the call still up and it's just not casted? Okay. That's weird. Okay.
Sam, can you hear us now? Hold on a second.
While we're getting that back up, what type of project does this fall under? I mean, is it a safety project?
It'll be a safety project, yeah. So that's what I assume. Obviously, they have the decision to choose how to fund it.
Right.
They've done safety, they've done operational improvements, they've blended, or they've just used other funding.
Oh,
Right.
there we go.
I apologize, Sam. We lost you for a second. Can you hear us now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Yeah, as soon as I started talking, then I broke it. I'm sorry. So yeah, Rob, he accurately displayed it in terms of the concept. There's an opportunity when we get, if there's no right of way, there's an opportunity to be able to skip that phase in the project development. There's, of course, every project is different. So when we reach closer to that step, we'll be able to determine, what we would be able to, if we're able to do that. And a big thing for me in terms of the safety program, and we're, if we're looking at safety funding here, it's safety data driven in terms of being able to program the project. So, but it absolutely would be, the ability to skip that would allow us to expedite any potential project. So. No, did I answer your question though, Rob, and everybody in the room? Did I make that clear? So that if you're able to skip the concept report, if we're able to validate that, then it absolutely would expedite the project. That saves time. So that's the reason why we always look for that opportunity.
Hand in hand with the ability, whether or not we need right of way, right? That's a big part of it, correct? And
Yes,
so,
sir.
but also that if you take that phase out of it, that's also a big time savings as far as getting the project ready for construction.
Yes, sir.
So question, Sam, because if can you go to the second page of the concept? So at the Publix driveway, there's two different things that are, as currently shown, potentially have a right-of-way impact. The first one is the drive to the north. On the concept, it says Loganville Shopping Center. So currently that road is actually a private road. We, the city, have had conversations with the owner of that road who is willing to dedicate that right of way in order for this project to happen. So I guess one question we have is, if that right of way is dedicated, does that count as not having right of way for the project? And obviously more research probably needs to be done, and maybe there's shades of gray to that, but that's kind of one of the first questions we have.
No, it's a good question. I may have Stanley chime in, but it depends who it's dedicated to. You know, if it's dedicated to the county, then the county or the local city or whatever the case, in this case, it would be the city, but it just depends, you know, and then if the city was able to approach us, I think that's a little bit easier. If it's dedicated directly to us within the project, I think there's definitely some red tape there from the federal, because these are federal safety dollars. So there absolutely would have to be at least an offer. If a project did materialize and we did go down that road and right away was offered, I believe, and Stanley, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we would still have to offer a fair value for that. So technically it would bounce us back into the right of way phase.
Yeah, that's true. It will bounce us back in the right of way phase. The important thing with that is that the right of way phase wouldn't have any environmental impacts. And from what we're looking at right now, it doesn't seem to be any environmental that might make the situation worse by them donating that right away. So it'll be ideally, if the donation was to be done, would be done early on in this situation to, I guess, whoever owns the other side of the road. Hello?
Stanley, thank you. That's helpful. So Danny, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say about that, or we.
He gave us a verbal.
Yeah, he gave us a verbal that he would be willing to dedicate whatever needed to the city as long as it didn't impact his. He's currently got a development, the top left there, that cleared open area. He's got a development he wants
top
to
left and top right.
Top left and top right. That he's working on currently. So as long as it didn't impact his ability to do that or require him to change anything to do that, he gave us verbal commitment. So if that commitment to the city helps this process, that's good for us to know, because I think that's definitely on the table. So my second question about right away is down on the south side. So we're showing some potential internal improvements to the public shopping center in order to kind of reallocate and promote internal progress through their parking lot. The Publix shopping center owner, not Publix, but the owner of the shopping center has also, we've approached them to talk about potential dedicated construction easements or things like that in order to achieve whatever those improvements might need to be without actually having to acquire right away or anything like that. Is that the same answer, Sam, there? Sort of if that construction easement is worked out with the city, then that would still keep us out of the right of way phase, or no?
It sounds like it. I think that one, I would need to go back and just double check it. That one's a little bit different flavor of a question, but if that was worked out on the city side, I could see it being in the same scenario, but we probably would want to get into further details to confirm it.
There's a scenario where anything off existing right away for internal to that shopping center becomes a separate project that is tackled separately, and that could, if that were to be an issue, that could potentially eliminate that. So,
But essentially, you're tying in from it's no different than what exists now. You're tying back into the shopping center. So
yeah, it's just there's some transition of parking spaces and just some things like that there'll have to be some agreements made. So I think that's a hurdle that should be relatively easily overcome if it becomes one.
Rob.
Oh.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Hey, Sue-Ann.
Hey, so on a federal project, which from my understanding, and Sam will correct me if I'm wrong, safety projects are federally funded. If there's gonna be a donation or construction easement given in order to follow the Uniform Act, GDOT has to do an appraisal and offer fair market value. The property owner can turn that down and donate, but that appraisal is going to trigger a right-of-way phase.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that for the north side, we would need to have that dedicated before, as soon as possible in the process. And on the southern side, our best bet there is probably to have that be a separate project tackled by.
Yeah, I would, all the changes in the Publix parking lot, I would have that done as a special encroachment permit by the property owner to tie in and, sort of work with the project. That way they can have all that done at one time. Our project, as you know, you've done hundreds of GDOT projects. We can include a coordination with contractors, special provision to coordinate with Publix contractor. And that work can go on simultaneously. If Publix wanted to, they could shoulder tap the contractor GDOT hires to do the work and ask them to do that. Again, that could go on simultaneously. All those are options. But if the right of way is going to, be given it's not public property, it's private property, then we've got to follow the Uniform Act.
Understand. Thank you.
So if they give us the road, Mr. Patel, this is a non-issue then.
Becomes public property of the
city's
city, city property, and then
The city can
the
denounce.
city can do
Donate.
that. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So that's the end of that section. I do have some questions that we'd like to ask the people at GDOT, but does anybody else have anything before I move into that?
no, continue.
Okay, perfect. So just a couple questions, really asks that the city has for GDOT, and I'll just go in order, I guess. The first one, I think the city is looking at potentially having us move forward with this crash screening, taking the first step in the project, or I guess since we've already done a lot of background work, another step in the project. But in order to do that, I think the city wants to hear, or would like to hear, from GDOT that in your eyes, this project has potential. Obviously no guarantees, but that it has potential, and that if we get down the road on this project and go through this process and the benefit cost ratios and everything about the project meet GDOT's expectation for funding, that GDOT would be willing to partner in this project in the future. So I think that's kind of the first question.
Yeah, this is Sam. I'll take the first stab at it. Yeah, absolutely. We would love to look at what potential collaboration could be done between us and the city. I think if we, like you mentioned, Rob, if we take our steps, we understand what that scope is going to be, what the potential responsibilities of each stakeholder is going to be as we work through that. I could see that we can hopefully come out with a project here. And again, yeah, being at such an early stage, there's no guarantees, but given that an RSA was done on the corridor, you have I guess a good way to say it is that it was identified for a reason by my group. So there's opportunity here for a project. So I think that everyone also needs to realize that these are the federal safety funds. So it'll be obviously geared towards safety when we look at whatever potential solutions. So as Rob mentioned before, we base everything off of what is called a safety benefit cost ratio. So that benefit is, how safe can we make it? And the cost is the cost of the improvements. So when we ultimately, the decision from my team is, if we have a good, viable safety BC, that will determine if we would move forward with any potential project or collaboration on that project. But I've worked with a lot of local governments in the past, whether it be county, city level, and with our district as well. They're a very important key part of that. And we're able to collaborate and work together and actually develop, safety projects that are definitely needed and viable. So I look forward to working with everybody during the process and see what can be done here in terms of a team effort.
Thank you, Sam. So next question, just building off of that a little bit. So, we talked through a little bit ago the process that we're going to need to go through. So I guess my next question, Sam, is there a point, or at what point in that process will we have a better idea verbally again that this project really has some merit? Is that when we finish the crash screening? Is it after ICE? Where in the process do we think we'll have not necessarily here's the dollar amount and we commit to it, but just a general consensus that this is has merit as a project?
Yeah, no, great question. To me, I feel like that is right after ICE. And the reason I say that is because early in your crash screening phases, you're throwing out a bunch of potential alternatives. And again, an RSA has been conducted, so you kind of almost have a cheat sheet, so to speak. So you already have an understanding of what the DOT is interested in. Because in that RSA, that itself is a study that provides recommendations to stakeholders to put together projects. Just because you do an RSA doesn't, and as we know why we're in the meeting today, it doesn't mean that a project is on the books and is moving forward. There's a lot of different things that go into effect of how a project moves forward that stems from an RSA. So, but to answer your question, I think it's right after ICE. The reason for that is because in ICE, you start validating what your preferred alternatives are, and the stakeholders all have that communication of like, okay, this is what we think the project could consist of. And when the TE study comes into play after that step, it validates everything within that TE study and documents it on us. Then we would have the ability to move forward to the next step after that. But I think it's right after ICE is really when we start understanding, what the project could start looking like, what is the viability of the project, and what we could move forward with.
That sounds real good. And so just trying to keep things in frame of reference, how long would it take if we start this process on our end, how long do you think it'd take before you have the ICE report done for all of these intersections?
We've already been coordinating with the citywide traffic study that's going on about getting those traffic counts before school gets out. So that would give us a leg up. We don't need that for the crash screening, but we would need it for ICE. So as long as we're able to get that worked out in the next week or so and make sure those are collected, 2 months maximum.
Middle of the summer, we may have an opportunity.
Yeah, and obviously that doesn't include some review time for GDOT and the city as we go through. So maybe call it first of the fall, something like that, before we have sort of we know where we stand. Sam, I don't know if you have a different answer, if you agree.
That seems reasonable. It would be your team that would be performing it, so I think you have a good feel for it. But that seems reasonable. I mean, that's just, and I wouldn't really count into, you're not talking about approved ICEs at that point from the DOT side. It's, finishing the ICE out, then starting the conversation of what these preferred alternatives could be. That seems like a reasonable amount of time to me.
I really understand that, Sam. Just we would have it at that point, and then we would be coordinating with you all to review and approve it.
Yeah,
sure.
And then Sam, sort of the last build point on the funding. So at what point in the process would a commitment become official from GDOT? Is that TE report if we don't have right away, or we're able to work that out, or concept report if we do? Is that kind of the point where it becomes programmed?
Yeah, and I know Stanley might chime in on this one, but I usually, when we get to the end of the TE study and we button everything up, is usually when I start working with a local government in terms of getting something in writing. Because at that point, we would shift the project. When a TE study is complete through the safety program, I then program it. Stanley and his team assist in programming it, and that means it gets a PI number. And then it goes to our Office of Program Delivery, and then they deliver the project. And so we would like to have that documentation before we, transition it over to our Office of Program Delivery. And we would like to have a good idea of what everyone is thinking, obviously, and what we ultimately want to go with. I would say traditionally in the past, when working with local governments, usually we don't have any problem with coming up with a dollar amount in terms of like a construction dollar amount that GDOT would commit to on any given project at that stage of conversation. And it all really depends on the BC. So if we have a really low BC, we would anticipate that the local government would participate more in terms of the dollar values, but it really just depends. Every project's different. So when we get to that stage, we'll have a better understanding of what those dollar values are. But right around the T study, and we would absolutely need it before we programmed it, to answer your question. And then I usually like to come up with those dollar values, because I don't like going back to a local government and saying, well, this has changed or whatever the case may be. I like to get solid numbers from a DOT side, so y'all know, hey, this is the amount that GDOT is going to contribute to this project. And that's not going to change because we have a document that supports that. So,
yeah, this is Stanley Mack again. I would agree with what Sam is saying. What I would add is that at that point from the TE study, once we know what the financial commitments would be from GDOT and local governments, that's probably when we'll like to request a commitment letter from the locals in order to program the project. So we have some kind of documentation saying that, all the parties are committed to moving forward with what we agreed to.
Our commitment would be PE or what?
So there's a couple different options that we talked with Sam about. So one option is the city can say, we'd like to handle PE, utilities, hopefully not right away, and we'd like for GDOT to handle construction. That's an option. There's also an option where GDOT takes the lead on all of it, and the city's commitment is literally a financial commitment to GDOT. We're going to pay X amount of dollars, and you guys handle it. You manage the design, you manage the construction.
And that'll all come out once we get to BC.
Correct. We'll understand what those dollar amounts might look like in the future. So we're still early to decide that, but there is an option of the city wants to handle the engineering and some other things, and GDOT handles construction. We've done one where the city handled the engineering and part of construction, and GDOT made up the last, that it wasn't full construction, but it was a part of the construction cost. So there's some of those things that we're going to have to flush out, and there's some decisions that you guys will have to make as to how you want to handle it.
So, Rob, I would say for people watching, PE, principal engineering.
Sorry,
costs,
yeah.
I mean, I know
preliminary engineering, the design work.
Say the T study, so they know what T study is, and the BC costs, so they all know.
Right, benefit cost ratios, the BC costs, TE study, traffic engineering study.
And my question is, once we have a PI number, does it sit at GDOT like some of these projects that we have now, or is it sort of like a quick response where once it has a PI, does it get fast tracked so we're not waiting years and years? That was a question I had for GDOT, or maybe you can answer, Rob.
Yeah, Stanley, I'll let you handle that one.
Once it has a PI number, it should move forward because we have committed to the funding, unlike sometimes when you have a project that might be in a tip or something like that. But typically, it should move forward. The PE portion might take, hopefully there's no right away. If there's no right away, we can, take, 10 months, 12 months off of the schedule. And so the design part of it, could be pretty straightforward. So from the time we program the project, if there's no right of way, we could look at a year and a half, 2 years to get the project on the street. So there's no reason for it to be waiting around unless we are trying to coordinate with another project that might be behind or something like that. If we decided to do something differently with the private property or something like that, but it should move forward.
I'll chime in real fast on top of Stanley's comment, and I agree with what he had to say. So once it gets into the PI number, I mean that's our commitment. Like Stanley said, that's when we have our commitment to the funding sources on that particular project. Since this is federal safety money again, so we would need to make sure that we check all the boxes that we have to in our plan development process, so the PDP process. So when not having right away, like Stanley said, that can save you a lot of time. That's 12 months off your schedule. Not having to do concept, that saves you a lot of time. So internally within the safety program and other offices, we look for opportunities to be able to deliver projects faster. We don't want to have a project sit in queue and go through the whole process and take 4 years to deliver it. Absolutely not. So we want to make sure that we're delivering the projects as fast as we can, but also following the proper procedures that we would have to do as well. And I would say there was the comments earlier on like how to participate. That again, as Rob said everything accurately, there are many different ways that a local can participate in a project with GDOT. I do have preferences, that help us. Sometimes it can make it more efficient as well. If a local did do PE and we put construction dollars into the construction and let the project, that is my preferred. Doesn't have to be that way. Obviously, there's conversations that take place in that, but it seems that in terms of the efficiency and being able to deliver a project, that's usually the preferred way that we would recommend on any given project. So hopefully that helps as well.
Dan, thanks. That hit on a point that I was going to say too. I think if the design ended up being GDOT led, I think there's probably more than 5, but I can think of several methods to get the design done. There's the safety contract could do the design. There's the regional on-call could do the design. The design could be led as a batch project to be done. So those have different time frames as how long it would take to get the project moving versus if the city did the design, that has a different time frame too. So there's a lot of variability based on some decisions that are made and how long until it gets started.
Prefer to be the principal engineer and let them do construction.
Yeah.
So Sam, I don't know you, but I like the way you talk.
Okay.
Is that, Rob, is that a decision we'll have to do after the T concept, come to?
Sam, I don't know if at what point you need that official decision from the city. It sounds like it's close to being official anyways, but I don't know if there's a certain point in the process you need that officially.
Stanley, do you have anything to say on that? I mean, to me, go ahead.
I think the only caveat with which direction we're going to go with that is once they can work out these easements and possible right-of-way takes or transfers and stuff like that. I think once we get that worked out, that will help you make that decision, Sam. So I don't think we can make a decision now. That part of it will make it, determine what route you go.
Yeah, no, absolutely agree. Definitely don't want to make a decision now because there's still a lot of discussion to take place, even when it concerns the scope of the project. And again, because these ultimately would be safety funds, it's going to be driven off that safety benefit cost ratio. So whatever scope is added to the project, it's either going to help that or decrease it. And the more viable that the project is, the more interested the DOT is going to be able to contribute funds to deliver the project. So, but I think the best course of action is we just make sure that we communicate in each step of the process. Once we see the crash screenings and once we get into the ice, I mean, we have a conversation at each stage, and if we like the numbers that we see, we'll continue to push forward to see what opportunities there are on that potential project.
Hey, Rob, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
How long do you think we'll get from now to the PI stage? where the project will be.
So we said fall for the screen. To get to PI, we'd need the approved ice and then TE study, assuming no right away. Probably the soonest I'd say is the first of the year, and I'm speaking a little bit for Sam and his group by saying that, but I think probably that would be the earliest. But once we get to that phase, depending on which way the design goes, we can get right to it and expedite things appropriately. I think there's some stuff with the right of way that it would behoove us to go ahead and spend some time now figuring that out. It'll save us time on the back end.
All right.
Okay. And then Stanley, I've got one last question, and obviously if you guys have anything else. Based on the current program and funding levels, is there a current fiscal year that is more open for future projects, or you know, is that 2030 or is that 2026, or should we be you know, speeding up or slowing down our process? I guess it's just helpful for us on schedule.
Now you can drive normal speed on this one. The budgets right now for our upcoming fiscal year, we have more projects right now than funding available, but like Sam keeps stressing, is the BC ratio that drives what projects actually gets done. So, you know, if this project will, let's say hypothetically, this project is going to be ready in 2.5 years or 2 years, and the BC is really, really strong, it's possible that, you know, it could be done at that time because of the BC it has. And so if it has a low BC, that makes it a little bit tougher to bring it in early on. So I think 2 years from now, our program is still going to be strong, but the BC will drive it to determine how fast we can get the project out the door.
Stanley, thank you. That's all I've got. Does anybody else on the committee have questions, or anybody else? Or obviously GDOT, if you have more questions of us.
I don't. I think this was a great conversation. I appreciate everyone's time on the matter. I'm excited to work with everybody. I think, again, you know, given the RSA, given the conversation we have today, there's some good potential here. So I'm excited to continue working with everybody to find out what actually could be done here. My main prerogative is to make all roadways in Georgia safer, and this looks to be a project that could do that. So, and if that's the case, I'm obviously very interested in collaboration.
I appreciate every one of you that joined us today. I mean, and making it safer is it certainly is first and foremost, but also for us, it's trying to move people and get them through faster and easier and that type of thing. And I think it all comes together for this project. So really appreciate you all joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for your time. We appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Any questions before? So we're going to continue on. We got a few more minutes to talk about just other things that's going on in Loganville, Sam. But you're welcome to stay on. But we're just to let you know we're going to talk about a few other projects that we have going on. But thank you for joining us today. And
thank you. Yeah, I'll hop off, but Rob can catch me up if there's anything interesting that we can maybe collaborate on anything else. So.
Yep. And Sam, I'll send you guys those files too, just so you have them. I apologize for not doing that beforehand.
No worries.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, Rob, I think you were going to continue and you were going to give us some updates on some of the projects.
Yeah, Sam's got that.
Before we get started, do we want to make a motion? I need to know if y'all want to spend money, let them continue with this ice for next council meeting. So you want to go over that price for you?
Yeah, Clay, do you have that?
Clay, I guess.
So yeah, I would make a motion that from the committee that we would move forward with this. We've certainly been waiting for this for a long time, and it was definitely be an improvement. We don't know exactly till we get the get the studies done, but we all have a good gut feeling that this is the right thing to do.
So this is one of the projects that we identified when we did the 2019 SPLOST. When we voted on this was one of the intersections. But then we did the ARC grant, and we don't want to spend money until we get that grant back. But I think with this project being so big and Publix is willing to contribute, Sam and Rob and I thought it was good to have this meeting now with y'all to see if y'all wanted to move forward, because it sounds like if we can get PE costs and they cover the construction, we can get a red light fairly cheaper, because I don't know if you're gonna go over that cost without GDOT, but it was.
Yeah, I think the updated cost we did earlier last year when things came back, I think all said and done was 1.95 million. It's in that the draft concept
Just for a red light.
for red light plus the improvements on the most of that cost is wrapped up in those improvements up on Mr. Patel's property. But everything that's shown in that was the 1.9 million, and that's PE, utilities, construction, all of it.
But if we get
Get safety funding, the project becomes a little bigger, but most of the construction cost, which is the biggest dollars, ends up being hopefully contributed from GDOT and the PE. So the city would end up spending much less and not only get this, but get more. So.
Do we have that, Rob? Do we have that information?
Yeah, it's the draft report, this one, it says draft. On the second sheet or the third sheet, it summarizes our cost estimates that we did last year for the concept that's attached to it, which does not include the median and the potential GDOT involvement.
So we'll let Clay, I guess, talk about the
ice.
Oh, you got it.
Yeah,
Okay,
I got
go
it.
ahead.
So in the meantime, we went ahead, we got sample copies of what this new crash screening looks like from GDOT, and then going through ICE. And we just put together some cost estimates. So all said, to do the crash screening and then to perform the ICE at the appropriate intersections, $32,000.
So I think we just need to have that outlined. So when we bring it to the council next week, we can just say, here, this is what.
Yeah, and we can send you that. The other thing I want to mention is Greg from Publix Shopping Center emailed that Publix is willing to commit $10,000 to $15,000 towards that. So that just a point to make. So what I'll do is I'll get Danny this breakdown of cost for the crash screening in the iced phase, and then you guys can.
So the rest of the community know, Bill knows, but initially when Rob and Sam and I talked to Greg, it was 10,000. But since he has emailed us back, says Publix I keep saying Publix, but the group that owns that shopping center said he has been given authority 10 to 15. So if we go with 15, which that's what I would go with, we're looking at
17.
Yes, $16,000, $17,000 for something that I think is very viable, and more likely I would ask to take that out of SPLOST funds, or we could take it out of general, but SPLOST would cover this. So that's why I want to move on it sooner than later.
Is there enough in SPLOST right now to cover that?
So, and that's kind of the first step. That's when, like Sam said, we get that sort of verbal, this project has merit. Then we would need to go to the TE study phase. We have that outlined too. It'd be another about $16,500 to complete that TE report, which is where we could end. But I don't think we want to approve that now, because if the project doesn't really have merit at the end of this first phase, not that we think that, but I think that would be an appropriate sort of next step. But it's up to you guys.
Are you comfortable saying what you think the total PE cost will be on this project? Or Sam,
A lot depends on the funding source.
Yeah, the original estimate, the original estimate for PE that's in that draft is $225,000. That does not include the PDP, which, because it didn't have federal funding tied to it, that would have been a city project. And the extents of the project, the potential project we're talking about, are a little longer. So.
But we're looking at substantial savings if we can partner up with GDOT.
$750,000 max for PE. I'm just saying that.
It would probably be less than that.
Yeah, I'm just saying a number, conservative number. I'll say this: the number that has been thrown out for contribution for construction is $3 million. Obviously, there's no merit behind that because we don't have any data. But that's kind of the number that's been thrown out. So if you compare those two numbers, that's a pretty substantial difference.
Yes, motion, she second.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
All in favor? Aye.
Do we want to take just the screening and the ICE, or do we want to go all the way through TE to council?
We're going to do the ICE.
Through the ICE, perfect. That's fine. So just so I know what information to get to Danny. Okay. Well, thank you all very much.
Sure, thank you. Good job, Rob.
So Bill, I'm not sure if you really want to go, if you want to just, if there's questions specific to projects or if there's anything in particular. I sent out a monthly memo to the city that kind of just gives an update on different projects that we're working on or that we're aware of in the area. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about that memo, or I can go
First
into more
thing I'd like
detail.
to, the State Route 2081 projects that are coming through, that,
Right.
Just touch on the status of those.
Yeah,
those
sure.
projects.
So absolutely, that's a great question. So as we had discussed previously, GDOT previously had a one-way pair project that had been in the works for many, many, many years through many councils, many city managers, and many mayors. So that project got split up into three separate projects. Two of them which are impacting the city of Loganville. So one of them is PI number, and PI means project identification number. PI 16387. So that is State Route 20 from Sharon Church to 78. So that project recently had their A3M meeting, which is essentially an assessment of effects of how it affects the surrounding areas, different cultural, environmental resources. So GDOT shared those plans with us, and I've got some layouts that I'm happy to email you separately that has it, but I have them with me. But essentially, there is a roundabout. Let me pull up my concept so I can talk you through it. Just a moment. So that project just recently, they had the concept report approved. Concept was approved, and that concept report is dated March. Let's see here, make sure I'm looking at the right one. April of 2020. So they've gotten the concept approved, and they have since proceeded to the A3M stage. So they have a design layout that they've gotten, that they've started to vet through and get that layout done. So right now, that project in particular, it involves essentially a roundabout now at Tuck Road and Sharon Church Road. And so Tuck Road would be realigned to align with Sharon Church Road. It's going to be a multi-lane roundabout. And the improvements actually start about maybe several hundred feet or 1,000 feet south of Sharon Church Road. Those multi-lane improvements are essentially a widening project. Those improvements extend all the way up, and there's going to be medians along the way with openings. There'll be an opening at Huntington Drive. I know that was a priority for the community, making sure that you could turn left out of Huntington Drive. So there is that opportunity. Many, like Overlook Drive, for example, you'd be able, if you want to turn left out of Overlook Drive, you have to make a right and then a U-turn. So there's going to, because of the medians, there's going to be several opportunities for the driveways. Instead of me, you want to make a left, you have to make a right and then a U-turn. And that includes also improvements at 78 intersections. So really close to the intersection we were just talking about today at Publix. They are proposing, if you're traveling north on 20, they're proposing a dual left to head west on 78, and then a dedicated right turn lane to head out towards Monroe area, and a single lane through the intersection. If you are traveling westbound on 78, they are proposing a dual left in addition to the 2 lanes through. So that there have been different concepts that were proposed at that intersection. There have been discussion of a continuous flow intersection, which would have had substantial impacts to the adjacent property owners. This option has a significantly smaller footprint. Sure. So I think the city can be pleased to see that this is the direction that they went. And I'm happy to share these concept layouts with you.
How committed is GDOT on that particular?
So this project is the other project I'm going to tell you about has only been funded through scoping. This project has been committed to. So this project has construction funds. I meant to look up the date that it was scheduled for construction. And I didn't get a chance to look at that before I walked in today. But that product is moving forward. It has a PI number. It is moving forward. So I'd have to look to see what date they're looking at. And a lot of that's going to be impacted by right-of-way acquisition and environmental impacts, because as we had alluded to in the previous conversation, right-of-way impacts can really kind of delay projects. So this will have a significant right-of-way component, which could add years to the project.
Wasn't the concept report approved for that section already or not?
Yes, the concept report is approved for that, correct. And I can send you a copy of that. I'll email that to you separately.
That's okay.
Okay. So that is just a quick update on that project. One thing I wanted to bring up, just for the city to keep in mind, as part of these GDOT projects, there's a utility relocation component that's a part of the project. So I want to just have continued conversation with the city about that. As part of the utility cost estimate, GDOT has what's called reimbursable utilities and non-reimbursable utilities. So as of right now, they have programmed for Loganville, the sewer portion of it, a significant amount of reimbursed to the city. So I want to have a separate conversation about that as I dig into that a little bit more. Sure. But I just don't want you to be surprised further on down the road when there's a pretty significant utility relocation costs. That's part of this project. So I've got that information. I can share that with you as we dig in a little bit more in detail. The other project, that original one-way pair project, like I said, it's split into 3 different projects. The other one was the widening of 20, basically from the 4-lane section all the way through down to 78. So that project is just scoping at this point.
I'm sorry, what's that project?
So that was the State Route 20 and 81 from State Route 1078 to Brand Road. So essentially from, if you're looking at like kind of what I call a fork in the road, if you're heading west on 78 and you hop on 81, yep, to head up that way, correct, Lawrenceville Highway. So that section is going to be widened from the existing 4-lane section at Brand Road all the way down through town. So that project is just has been funded for scoping at this point. So that one, there's still a lot of question marks about that project. In particular, some roundabouts that they were looking at. So when looking at the concept layouts, they highlight a lot of intersections saying that the specific answer to this intersection has not been decided yet. So they show some concept level roundabouts, but the roundabout may or may not be the full answer there. So specifically, I think the roundabouts. Let me pull up the concept here.
Where's the roundabouts going to be?
Yeah, so one of I'll go through it here. So the roundabout concepts are at, let's see here, and part of that project is going to be realigning kind of where at the QT at Cowan Drive. It's going to be realigning that, and so it's not such a skewed intersection. It would be more of a T type intersection. But the roundabout concepts were specifically at Main Street and 20, kind of right out here in front of City Hall. Another roundabout concept that they were looking at was also, I believe, at Brand Road. Let me just confirm that.
And then Bay Creek and Brand, I believe.
Yep. So the other, was right there at Brand Road as well. So anyhow, those were the different. But what they have is they have a big circle around the roundabout that says the intersection configuration is subject to change. So I think they're still evaluating if that's the best solution for the intersection. So that project, like I said, is also just in scoping. And I also wanted to point out that there's a utility component, utility relocation component to that as well, that we just want to make sure that we're communicating with GDOT to get as much state aid funding to reduce the liability or the cost that the city would have for any utility relocations on that project. Does that answer your questions on the status of those projects, Bill?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic.
You want to go ahead and talk about, can you tell us just give us an update on Destination Park?
Sure, absolutely. So Gwinnett County, the Gwinnett County SPLOST funds is funding, there was a infrastructure component, a recreation component, and a transportation component. So all of these components are really kind of being focused and narrowed on around the Destination Park area. So Destination Park, there's going to be the park component, a sidewalk connection up to Fox, I think it was Fox Trail or what, yeah. And then also because we're providing restroom facilities to Destination Park, there was a utility component to get water and sewer to there. So the plan there is still to have that project out to bid this summer. So we're making really good progress on that one.
That's good.
Yep.
And I guess the last thing I was want to hear is the fire station, the access on those.
Yeah, and actually, if you don't mind, Rob, I think you just met with GDOT this week, correct, on that. So if you don't mind, just give me a quick update on that.
How soon are we going to get it? Or
So I don't have a timeline yet. I met with Alan Davis, who's the Assistant State Traffic Engineer for Traffic Signal. I don't know if you know Alan. So they've been working on an intergovernmental agreement between GDOT and the city with their legal team, just to have some legal documentation for it. Apparently, GDOT cannot gift the units to the city because they were paid for with federal funding. So their plan is to do a 20-year lease, free lease, 20-year lease. So that'll be the paperwork that he said he had a final draft on Tuesday. So we should have that next week to put before city council. He was going to get me a timeline on the contractor that GDOT has to install the roadside units, which are actually what goes on the traffic signals. And then also they have to program, and then we'll pick up what's called OBUs, onboard units, which is the unit that goes within the city vehicles that we'll pick up, bring to the city, and the city's going to install those in their vehicles with their own staff. So don't have a timeline yet. As soon as we do, I will let you know. But that intergovernmental agreement should be to the city next week.
All right. You explain what these devices do for the public.
No problem. So OBUs, onboard units, that's the unit that's in the vehicle that allows the vehicle to communicate with the roadside unit, which is the one that's on the traffic signal. So those are the two vehicles or the two pieces of equipment that interface with each other. Essentially what happens is the unit that's in the vehicle is wired into a GPS and is also, it'll pick up like the turn signal in the vehicle. So the signal up ahead will know this vehicle is going right, this vehicle is turning left, this vehicle is going through based on whether or not the turn signal's on. And it'll adjust the signal timing ahead of the vehicle to give it priority to go through the intersection.
So just so people know, this is just at Brand Road, the signal there, and just the signal at Top
No,
River.
this is all signals within the city. Correct.
Okay.
So all of the vehicles, I think we have 30. We're going to get 30 of the vehicle units.
Okay.
So that should cover the fleet for
The frontline police and fire, and I try to get Walton County to do with the ambulance, but still I've not heard back from them.
And then all 7 traffic signals within the city will be outfitted.
So Rob, can you repeat that again?
Yeah.
Each vehicle is going to have.
It'll have a little transponder that communicates with any signal it's approaching.
So Mayor, when the truck or police car or ambulance is coming to the intersection, it'll give them the green so they can better control the intersection, they can proceed.
Yeah.
We waited on this for a while because Gwinnett County was in the process of.
They're in the process of deploying this on not a county-wide, but sort of a half Gwinnett County-wide on the western side of the county. The original technology we were pursuing this with was different. The county asked us to hold off because this new technology was going to be available in the short term. As with technology, this technology is probably going to be good for 5 years, and then there might be something new. But at least we'll be able to have a lot of benefit to the city and the emergency responders.
So when they get a call and they turn on that device, and the light would signal with the device where they're at,
Yeah. So it's a combination of like GPS, so it'll know where the vehicle is.
That's right.
I think.
It's activated by their siren and lights.
Right. So when they flip their lights on, that'll kind of turn it on.
Oh, okay.
And then if they have a left turn signal or a right turn signal or no turn signal,
That's right.
the signal, the traffic signal ahead of them will clear the way for them to go.
If you remember, we got approval from the council to put in a wire at Station 3, which is Old Oakville. We have since delayed that because of this technology.
Yeah. So instead of having to do that,
The
it's
old
able to
school
be
is
wireless.
inside the station, you would push a button and it would delay that traffic signal Brand and 78 to turn green for Old Loganville. But with this wireless technology, that's why we waited, because for one, it was free, because these guys came to me and said, hey, we got a way to get this for free. Do you want it? And I said, yes, no brainer, Sam. Let's get it. So we were able to get 30. We tried to get more, but 30 was the number. So it's more than enough for all of our police and our fire trucks.
Instead of just getting the one signal,
It's
We're
all of
getting
them.
all the signals, yeah.
Since East Lights belong to GDOT, is there any GDOT involvement?
They're the ones providing it. They're going to do the installation of the units at the signals. So yeah, that'll be who the intergovernmental agreement is with. So yeah, GDOT's intimately involved with the program.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anything else on that one?
No.
Perfect.
I think that's covered what I wanted. Ian, anything? Mr. Mayor?
No?
Danny? Good?
The paving project, C.S. Floyd, is completed. We were having to have a contractor replace some of the loops at the intersection right out here at 2081. I think they were out there today.
Yesterday and today.
Yeah.
And then the road behind racetrack, Chairman, I know you asked me about it last week. They met yesterday. They're planning to do it the week after Labor Day, or Memorial Day, I'm sorry, to put curb and gutter in. So the price came in, I think, $5,000 more than what we projected. So we may have to come back and ask for more money, but that is to fix that intersection or that road you see, Oak Grove. There's a large, extremely large hole in the middle of the road that we got to pipe it and get the water off of it. So that's why it's going to cost some money. But
And Danny, okay.
Yep. Go ahead, Mayor.
No, finish up.
No, it's the same with them. Project designed it, and we got our contractor for concrete. It's going to do the work that weekend after Memorial Day.
Have you asked Sam about Cowan Road?
Yes, I got.
Yeah.
We could put a sidewalk. We'd have to put a sidewalk and a crosswalk there. But speaking with the police and with Sam and I, it would only delay the traffic because instead of having the police there stopping cars, anytime there's a pedestrian in that crosswalk, they would have to stop by law. So every time somebody walks, it would just backtrack. So Sam and I feel, and the police feel, that it's better to have police there stopping the traffic and letting them through versus a crosswalk. But if the council wants a crosswalk, we'll put it. But one person comes and it shuts down. So you know how many people is at that intersection at Growers Outlet. But we could put one, but we'd have to put a little sidewalk to connect the crosswalk to a sidewalk because it's a gravel lot. But yes, answer that question.
Okay.
Because we get a lot of phone calls just so the public knows about the traffic.
Because it grows outlet.
Because of Growers Outlet, it is a business. We cannot shut him down because he has traffic. The traffic, they say it backs up on 78. I have not seen it, but they say it does. But the police does, they do try to get them in and out as quickly as possible. But it's just a lot of people going to buy plants, I guess.
So there's not much we can do about crosswalk. Just have the police.
We can put one there, but like I said, the police, if they still work it, they can still stop it with a crosswalk.
They should be good. Okay.
Sam, do you want to add anything on
No,
that?
I think that's appropriate
Or
what
as
you
an
said.
engineer
Yeah, absolutely. I
standpoint?
mean, if you have a crosswalk by state law, you've got to stop for pedestrian in the crosswalk, right? So it seems like we're really trying to get cars out of there, right? And by putting that in there, you may be
Delaying it.
Yeah, you solve one problem, but create another.
You may be adding to the problem.
Yeah.
Basically.
There's a lot of people that don't understand flashing yellow still,
Yes.
which messes up coming out of town. It's backed up all the way back and
Yeah, they don't go when there's somebody coming. Right. Yes, I see it all the time.
That's right.
But that's the new technology, right?
Yeah, and sometimes it's a learned behavior. So just over time, they'll figure it out, and I hope.
Sam, do you want to talk about the timing? Because I know we still I know Robbie is shaking his head because the timing on all the red lights. You want to explain that right quick?
So I guess we coordinated with GDOT, and they were supposed to come out and make some adjustments. Have you received continued complaints about the timing, or?
I've heard.
Okay. No, I know some. Like for example, I think the Main Street intersection that was still under construction, so that may have been in construction. It maybe hadn't been fully timed yet. But if you're getting additional complaints, if you don't mind, just pass those on to us. And Alex in our office has been coordinating with the DOT folks to get that. And they were pretty quick to respond the last time.
Public knows Sam looked at all the red lights and sent somebody out, and they actually.
Yeah. So we went and observed and looked in the cabinets, looked at the traffic, the numbers, and made recommendations to DOT to make some adjustments. They were supposed to have gone out there and made the adjustments. I'm pretty sure that they did. So I'd love to see if there was any feedback, continued feedback. If there is, then we'll coordinate, continue to
Well, I
coordinate.
know 20 was being backed up in front of City Hall here, but yesterday they connected those loops.
Yeah, that may have
So
fixed
hopefully that will get that light. And anytime the power goes out, it has to reset and go through that process again. So
The only feedback that I've gotten is 78 going west. You want to make a left onto 20.
Mm-hmm.
It's very short.
And that, obviously GDOT has that product that they're planning on adding dual lefts there. So I think they recognize that's a problem, and there's a long-term solution for that one. And they're going to add dual lefts as part of that project from westbound to go south on 20. That should help that.
And another one that I spoke to Danny about, Tom Brewer, Pines of Terra. If you want to make a right onto Monroe, obviously, is there anything on that?
I know, Rob, you and I talked about that one. I forget what that was over by the fire station. There was Tom Brewer. I think it was, we didn't have counts. That's right. We would have to order counts from what I remember.
Well, Mayor, when you called me, I thought it was coming off of Tom Brewer, but after speaking with Mr. Bill, I think they were talking about coming out of the high school making a left. Was that the issue with
it's coming out of Pines Terra. In other words, there's
there's no right of way. We would have to put
no right of way to make a right.
So Sam, what they want to do is put a right turn lane on
Right.
Tom Brewer. So we would have
northbound turn right to head towards Monroe.
we would have to acquire a right of way, put a lane, and that was also falls in GDOT's right of way. They have a brand new pole there. It would have to be relocated. This is just one of those projects, just like at Logan Drive, that they wanted us to look at in front of a Home Depot. It's
hard.
put a right. They think they see land there, but it's simple, but it's extremely not.
Yeah, a lot of
simple.
times when you
It's
touch it in the
extremely hard.
intersection, you've got to really upgrade the whole thing.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Just thought I'd bring it up.
absolutely.
Alrighty.
Thank y'all very much. Thank y'all very much.
Hey, thank you. I want to thank everybody that joined us today, and I will motion to adjourn. Thank you. Aye, aye.